Elections, Finance, and Government Operations Committee to order. We're going to hold off on the minutes for today, so we're going to move right into House File 4077. Representative Greenman, would you like to move your bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that House File 4077 be moved to the General Register.
Thank you. The bill's been moved to the General Register. There are two amendments. Did you want to move the amendments? I think these are both authors' amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One is an author's amendment, and one is a friendly amendment offered by Representative Coulter. So let me move the A1, which is the author's amendment. And what this simply does is ensure that we are capturing, when we originally drafted this bill, we had a smaller set of jurisdictions that we were capturing. This is the intent of the bill, which is to capture any jurisdiction that is potentially entering into the kind of NDAs that would be about economic development, property acquisition, and taxation. And then it also just clarifies that we're talking about an NDA with a private person, which includes corporations and all artificial entities.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion to the amendment? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the amendment is adopted. I mean, since the other one's a friendly amendment, it might make sense just to discuss and vote on that one at the same time, if that's okay with members. Okay, seeing no objection, I see Representative Coulter moving towards his switch. So would you like to offer the A2 amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move the A2 amendment. And really what this does is just, I think, focus in on, again, to Representative Greenman's point, the intent of the bill, which is to focus on economic development, land development, and so on, that is either entirely or at least partly funded by public dollars, tax revenues, financial obligations, TIF, bonds, other debt obligations, things like that.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion to the A2 amendment? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, Representative Greenman?
It's fine.
Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the amendment is adopted. Two-year bill as amended, Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House File 4077 is a simple and common sense bill. It simply prohibits local municipalities and their elected or appointed officials from entering into non-disclosure agreements with a private entity. In a second, I'll turn to our testifiers, and there are lots of testifiers. There's also a lot of really important information in your packets to share their experiences, and I think it'll be clear why there is bipartisan urgency for the state to act right now to prohibit this practice of corporate secrecy from corrupting our public processes. So there's not many bills in the legislature that are Greenman-Roach bills, but Representative Roach has been, we both introduced bills on this topic because we're hearing from our constituents and folks across the state about the need to protect the public's right to know. And so we have been working on this together. We both drafted bills, and we believe, and I think lots of people in this body believe, public transparency is really important, and understanding how damaging this practice of NDAs can be to that public trust. So what is a non-disclosure agreement or an NDA? These are private contracts, almost always drafted by the private entity that is designed to keep whatever information they decide, usually even including the existence of an NDA, from public view. Corporations use them all the time to maneuver in private practice and in business, to prevent people from disclosing information that the company thinks could be damaging or unhelpful to that company. But we are learning that it is also an increasing tool that corporations are using to keep information from the public, and that is being normalized in local government at the expense of public transparency and our constituents' right to know what conversations their elected officials are having with private entities about their communities. To be clear, we're talking about people elected or appointed or hired to represent the public, making these secret agreements and keeping information from the public for the benefit of the corporation to keep these plans in secret. That's a problem we're trying to fix. In Minnesota, we've developed a comprehensive framework of transparency laws all over our statutes, open meeting laws, data practices laws, other laws governing local government that carefully balance the public's right to know what their elected officials and government are doing with the needs to governing. collectively, these laws and our practice has been to create a strong public presumption that when local electeds, when elected officials in general are doing stuff that's in the public interest and about our communities, there is a public interest in the public having the right to know. This has worked out over the decades. This has been worked out over the decades. And this bill does not touch any of those laws. What this simply does is say businesses cannot try to get around public information with their own private contracts. This bill doesn't touch any of the laws I mentioned. It simply prohibits local governments from entering into private agreements that could undermine public trust. And this isn't hypothetical. And as you'll see and you'll hear from the testifiers, it's already done real harm in our state. NDAs have eroded a trust with local decision makers. They've evaded the process of public deliberation and participation that our entire democracy and government is built on. This bill is about protecting the public's right to know, and it's about protecting our local electeds from being bullied into things that into hiding things from their constituents by powerful companies and their corporate lawyers. This is a transparency bill. It's very simple, but it's a really important one. And with that, Mr. Chair, I believe that there are testifiers.
Thank you, Representative Greenman. With that, we will turn to testimony and then member discussion. I do have 8 people who have signed up to testify on this. Since we do have a few other bills, I'm going to limit testimony to 2 minutes. Some of the testifiers are remote and some are in person. So first I will call on Richard Hilton, who is remote, and then Richard Hilton will be followed by Aubrey Dirksen, who is also remote. Richard Hilton, are you online?
I am.
Okay, thank you. Please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Okay, my name is Richard Hilton. I'm a citizen of Hermantown and I support HF 4077. It has directly affected me and our community. Under the NDA, without citizen knowledge or input, our city hall has changed business light manufacturing plans without even contacting the BLM committee we had set in place. They also changed zoning rules to allow a data center bigger than Mall of America, bigger than the entire state fairgrounds, to fit under light manufacturing rather than heavy industrial like it should have been. Not until 8 days ago did we even know that Google was behind this, and it's been in the works for over 2 years. We didn't find out about it until the Star Tribune, a newspaper, released this information. And even then, the city didn't admit that it was a data center that they were working on, Project Loon, for 34 days after that. In that time, so the Star Tribune released this article. 13 days later, we voted on the AUAR for that. And most of us citizens didn't even know what that was. We had to do our homework quick. 27 days later, while the city was still denying it, they voted on the rezone of this land. Over 300 people showed up. 12 voted for of it, most with vested interest. They were labor union reps and etc. 51 citizens voted against. Of those 12, I think 1 was from Hermantown City. We're not asking for secret engineering plans. We don't want secret designs. We're just asking for information that affects our communities. We want to know how much it's going to pollute. Is it going to affect our wells? Most of the area around this is citizens who have wells. They're not even public water. So when you learn more from the newspaper than you do your own local government, that breaks down trust. I feel betrayed. Most of the citizens here feel betrayed. Because they're making changes in secret without our knowledge or even input, and it doesn't seem like they wanted it. They voted unanimously against citizens who have showed up to these meetings.
If you could please wrap up your testimony in a sentence or two, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, we still don't know when the planning for this project originally began. So this is a chance to earn back some trust and say clearly that local governments shouldn't be allowed to hide behind NDAs. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate your testimony. The next testifier is Aubrey Dirksen, and after Aubrey Dirksen will be Kathy Johnson, who is in person. Kathy Johnson, you're welcome to go up to the testifying table. Aubrey Dirksen, please, if you are online, please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Aubrey Dirksen. I am a resident of Pine Island, Minnesota, and one of the organizers of the Stop the Pine Island Data Center group. I am writing to commend the efforts to ban NDAs at the municipality level for large-scale projects that would permanently alter small towns like mine. Project Skyway, a 3 million square foot data center proposed in my small rural town, has been shrouded in secrecy, half-truth, and lies by omission at best. When point blank asked by residents whether the city and the developer the city and the developer flip-flopped between yes and no answers as to whether an NDA had been signed. Only after a data request was filed did they then admit that 2 NDAs had been signed by the city administrator and the deputy city administrator. My data request showed that they had failed to disclose a 3rd NDA that had been signed by the city engineer. Their reasoning was that the city engineer is a contracted employee that had no obligation to disclose that he had signed an NDA, even though that he is making the decisions about the project for and with the city staff, and his position is still funded through tax-paying residents. Based on this experience, I make the recommendation that the ban needs to extend to contracted municipal employees as well. My small farm town has fewer than 4,000 people, and our biggest building is the grain elevator. This is the largest project in the town's history. It is twice the size of US Bank Stadium. It is industrial, not agricultural, and this is just phase 1. As residents, we were not given a seat at the table in whether we wanted this project in our town in the first place. The developer and the city administrator have been working behind the scenes with NDA since late 2023, but residents only just found out about this project in September of 2025. Google, being the end user, was only just announced 2 weeks ago in February of 2026. Please stop predatory NDAs that strip the agency and the public process from residents like me and communities like mine.
Thank you for your testimony. Next is Kathy Johnson, and after Kathy Johnson will be Louis Schwarzkopf, a remote testifier. Kathy Johnson, welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Hi, I'm Kathy Johnson from Farmington, Minnesota, and thank you for hearing my testimony. And thank you to Greenman and Roach for introducing this bill. As a 47-year resident of Farmington, I was outraged when I learned that Tract Land Development of Colorado had proposed to put one of the largest hyperscale data centers in the country nestled between 3 residential neighborhoods. That was 2 years ago. I learned about the project because people that live within 350 feet of the border received a postcard stating there would be a discussion about rezoning. 2 savvy neighbors went, "What's this about?" Passed out flyers, and we managed to get an SRO crowd at the first public hearing. A proposed project plan was introduced, and the chair of the Planning Commission said he'd never seen it before. The city planners and council were working with the developer, and we discovered planning had been going on for months, maybe up to a year. We now recognize that there's a template out there. Developers come to small or rural communities with faux promises of permanent jobs and tax revenue. In exchange, they ask the city employees and councils to sign NDAs and promise water from the domestic water allocation of the city to supply the data center. No citizen input whatsoever. The template's being used all over the state to convince naive and tax-hungry small towns to work against their own citizens to approve a plan without citizen input. At the first public hearing, the developers literally said, "We're good neighbors. We'll stay away from from residential neighborhoods, and we have a long way to go in permitting, and we obey ordinances." But we subsequently found out that statutes and ordinances were either non-existent or simply waived. There's a 40-foot limit on buildings height in Farmington, but that was waived to allow 80-foot buildings. There was no knowledge of the citizens to have input on that before it happened. Citizens have been shut out at every step of the process. Meetings were presentations with no dialogue. Public hearings with track held as a presentation. The first word out of the developer's mouth was no recording allowed of this meeting.
If you could wrap up your testimony.
In recovered emails, the developer asked to work with the community. Subsequently, the city planner said, "Are you ready to go public with this?" Asking if the city was ready. We were given no opportunity to speak. Our former mayor who suddenly resigned, said, "I have a vision for the community, and if you don't like my vision, you can just move." The developer literally got everything that they wanted, and that was admitted by one of the city council members.
Please conclude your testimony.
And all of this happening in the secrecy behind NDAs.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Apologize, we do have a fairly tight agenda, so thank you for your testimony. Next up is a remote testifier, Louis Schwarzkopf. After Louis Schwarzkopf will be Sarah Moradian, who is in person. Sarah Moradian, you're welcome to go up to the testimony table. Louis Schwarzkopf, please, if you're online, please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Hello, Elections Finance Committee. My name is Louis Schwarzkopf. I'm a retired physics professor from Minnesota State Mankato and a volunteer with Faith in Minnesota. I'm testifying in favor of House File 4077 to prohibit municipalities from entering into non-disclosure agreements or NDAs. I want to describe the experience North Mankato had with an NDA. In 2023, a developer approached city staff in North Mankato about constructing a hyperscale data center on a tract of land just west of the city and asked them to sign an NDA, which they did. Now, fast forward to April 2025, the city of North Mankato, as required by state law, posted an environmental review, specifically an alternative urban area-wide review, or AUAR, of the proposed data center on the city website for public comment. In the AUAR, the development was referred to as a technology park. There was no explanatory language on the webpage. There were no public hearings. At their July 7 meeting, the North Mankato City Council voted unanimously to approve the AUAR, thereby giving the developer the green light to proceed. My point is twofold. Number one, city officials serve the people. NDAs erode the trust between city officials and the people they serve. And number two, this decision belongs to the community. When the plan is known and the water and electricity required by the plan are known, then the plan must be disclosed to the community, which this law would allow, so that they can decide if they want it or not. It's for the community to make the decision, not a large corporation acting in secrecy. That's why I support this bill, and I urge the committee to do the same. There's more information in my written testimony, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. The next testifier is Sarah Moradian, and after Sarah Moradian will be Jenna Vandenboom, who is online. So Sarah Moradian, please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Freiberg, Chair Quam, and committee members. My name is Sarah Moradian. I'm the Government Relations and Policy Director for CURE, a rurally based nonprofit dedicated to protecting and restoring resilient communities and landscapes by harnessing the power of the people who care. I appreciate the opportunity to testify in strong support of House File 4077 today. Over the last year, CURE has submitted Data Practices Act requests to cities, state agencies, and the governor's office to obtain information about proposed hyperscale data center development and lobbying efforts by big tech to make these proposals a reality. We've learned that because of non-disclosure agreements, it can take years before the public is officially notified that a project has been in development and that the project is a data center, and even then, the details of the proposal often remain shrouded in secrecy. When approached by multi-billion-dollar corporations promising tax, revenue, jobs, and economic development, local governments may be understandably eager to welcome the proposed projects. So signing an NDA may feel like a simple and inevitable ask. But as we're seeing play out in Hermantown, Farmington, Monticello, North Mankato, Pine Island, and other cities across the state, without transparency at the outset, Minnesotans lose trust in our government. Hyperscale data center developers and operators argue that secrecy is needed for a competitive advantage and to keep real estate values from spiking. But cities like Cannon Falls have declined to sign NDAs and still managed to attract development. And as reported by the Star Tribune, the land in Hermantown, on which Google's data center may be built, sold for nearly $6 million, despite the land having an estimated value of $1.9 million. Clearly, increased property values aren't an obstacle for these Fortune 50 companies. For data center developers and operators, this is a race to the bottom for the cheapest electricity and the lowest effective tax rates. This pits our communities against each other to offer the best deals, often to their detriment. By restricting the ability to sign NDAs, our local governments are given the support that they need to be able to negotiate for the public's best interest in full view of the public with some of the largest, wealthiest, and savviest companies in the world when they come looking for bargains. For these reasons, we would urge your support for House File 4077.
Thank you for your testimony. The next testifier is online. It is Jenna Vandenboom. After Jenna Vandenboom will be Ashley Grimm, who is in person and is welcome to go up to the testifying table. Jenna Vandenboom, please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Hello, my name is Jenna Vandenboom, and I'm from Monticello, Minnesota. I'm here on behalf of the Stop the Monticello Data Centers group. Thank you for allowing me the time to testify today. Monticello is a community of approximately 16,000 residents located roughly halfway between Minneapolis and St. Cloud on Interstate 94 and the Mississippi River. Our group consists of over 1,100 members and continues to grow daily. The goal of our group is to put a pause on hyperscale data centers in Minnesota until regulations to provide the necessary protections for building something as impactful as hyperscale data centers are implemented. I'm here today in support of House File 4077. This legislation is important to me because the hyperscale data center boom in Minnesota and specifically Monticello pose significant threats to Minnesota and specifically Monticello. We currently have 2 hyperscale data center proposals for Monticello. The developers for our proposed hyperscale data center projects signed NDAs preventing the need for our city officials to have to. While our city declined to sign NDAs when asked, many other cities across the state have opted to sign them, allowing them to operate with all this secrecy prevents a full, clear picture and understanding of what the developments will look like. Therefore, it's difficult to appropriately create ordinances for the proposed projects. The issues around hyperscale data centers are putting city governments at significant odds with their constituents as they determine how to independently navigate this uncharted territory. The use of non-disclosure agreements further erodes trust between the city government and its constituents. Monticello city government has repeatedly questioned its ability to create and/or enforce rules that exceed that of the state government. I understand the concept of wanting cities to maintain the autonomy to act independent of stringent government oversight. But that being said, we have cities from all over the state represented here, and the decisions made here pose significant ramifications for all Minnesotans. It's important to note that if left in city government hands alone, when all these hyperscale data centers get approved, the scale of ramifications will be felt not just across our state, but throughout the entire country. Continuing to leave these decisions in the hands of individual cities without the guardrails necessary for guidance is irresponsible and has had a significant impact on our current situation. That's why I'm asking for you to support HF 4077. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I'm willing to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. The next testifier is Ashley Grimm, who is in person. After Ashley Grimm, the final testifier will be Nathan Ryan, who is online. Ashley Grimm, welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. I'm Ashley Grimm, 3rd District St. Louis County Commissioner. County Commissioner work is an honor, and it also relies almost 100% on trust. We're the state's trusted partners, and community members come to us at their most sensitive times. When they're about to lose their home, when they're navigating healthcare, during exciting moments like opening a daycare. We are trusted, and dare I say in politics, we are liked. And I mention that because I haven't seen anything erode trust at the county as fast or as broadly as commissioners signing NDAs last year. The NDAs in St. Louis County, which are still in effect today, gave a company up to 5 years to build relationships and lobby a data center project without the public present. In the months that followed the NDAs being exposed, it was justified as normal and necessary. It was neither. It was the first time in my 2 terms that elected officials had signed NDAs at the county. All other economic development projects had gone through staff at that phase. The key thing that you're considering banning here today is not the access of information that businesses need to develop. It's the one thing that staff cannot build: the political will to pass a project without the public present. We should ban these at the county. But I have seen pressure from these companies convince enough commissioners to leave this option open for fear of losing project to neighboring counties. So a statewide ban is unfortunately the only way forward. I've also seen community come together like I've never seen before. Hundreds, ad hoc, people who are not in the same room otherwise together. And so I come here to say your community is behind you. I'm behind you. And our roles require us to. Thank you so much for considering this today.
Thank you for your testimony. Our final testifier is Nathan Ryan, who is remote. If you are online, Nathan Ryan, please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Yes, I'm Nathan Ryan, former elected official in the city of Dundas. I currently live in the city of Farmington. I'm here today to testify for and in favor of this bill. I definitely think that having elected officials, let alone city officials, sign NDAs creates many problems. One of those chief problems being access to information for elected officials. With the NDAs in place, they have to go through the company to get most or all of their information. They have to rely on that the company is actually being truthful and accurate and they're providing that information. It also leads to lack of transparency. And I'd like to read this is actually in the developer agreement from the Tract Corporation with the city of Farmington. And this is point 5, charges changes in official control for 8 years from the effective date of this agreement. No amendments to the comprehensive plan or official controls that apply to or affect the use of development density, lot layout, or dedications or platting requirements or permitted by the approved plat and PUD unless required by state, federal, or agreed in writing by the parties, and accept amendments placing this plat in the current urban service areas. Therefore, notwithstanding anything in this agreement to the contrary to the full extent permitted state, federal law, and city may require compliance with any applicable amendments to the city official controls or comprehensive plan. I've been advocating for a moratorium on data centers, and I have been scratching my head trying to figure out why the city wouldn't do something like this. And the matter of it is they signed an NDA and they got this put in the developer agreement, and they know that it's there. And that effectively would not even affect this parcel for 8 years. And that is a prime example of why an NDA should not be signed and why these things should go before the public and public have access. The first time that anyone saw this developer agreement was it was on a city council agenda. No member of the public saw this before that. And I guarantee that if we would have, I think that option number 5 would have been brought out and brought to light. And that is just a pure example of what NDAs do and how they can be used against citizens. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, that is everyone who signed up in advance to testify. There were only supporters of the bill who signed up, so I will draw your attention in your packets. There's a packet of written comments that were also submitted, a couple of which expressed some concerns with the bill. So just wanted to make sure members were aware that that was there. Co-Chair Quam.
Thank you, Chair. Are there anybody in the audience that wants to testify? Because sometimes there are people that submit
Yes,
and
I
do
think-
appear.
Well, let's see, is there anyone? Then I can determine what. Okay, I don't see anybody, except city manager from my district, so, hey, Tim, how's it going? So, sorry, your only available time to meet was when I'm doing this here, but, if you want to tell me something, no, it's okay. Okay, sorry, I didn't see any hands, Co-Chair Quam, so, but thank you for bringing that to our attention. So is there a member discussion? Vice Chair Altendorf.
Thank you, Chair Freiberg. So Representative Greenman, on your bill, can you describe a little bit, I guess, I just am wondering about, like, is this retroactive or how would this affect, NDAs that have already been signed?
Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad you asked that question. Yeah, this would affect all NDAs. And like in other contract piece, we shouldn't have a problem when it's in the interest of the public. I can, if you'd like me to bore you with a Commerce Clause and the Minnesota, which I brought right here, it's been long recognized that the prohibition of laws impairing the obligation of contracts does not prevent states from acting pursuant to their inherent police powers or to promote public welfare. And I think in this case, when the issue is public right to know, it is very, very clear that we don't have a contracts clause issue. So that is why we made the decision. I think what you're hearing from a lot of these testifiers is we have an issue right now. And the problem with NDAs is we actually don't know when they've been signed, because a lot of times NDAs actually forbid you from saying that there's an NDA. And so that's why we need to make sure that right now we know and prohibit this practice.
Vice Chair Altendorf, follow-up?
Thank you, Chair. And Representative Greenman, my area is Cannon Falls and Pine Island, and I've met with groups of people that were concerned about the data centers, and this is definitely one of the things that have been brought up. I would worry, and I don't know if you can address this, but if the bill, is it covering anything, like where it would be like, personal employees, like that kind of thing, that it was like maybe private information? I mean, is there anything that, I'm just trying to think outside of the box, that sometimes we write laws and it causes a unintended consequence? Is there anything that you think you haven't addressed in here or that might be a problem?
Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Mr. Chair. And I appreciate the question, because I actually had some of the same questions when I was talking to the cities and counties. The first thing to say is, again, this does not change or touch the broad set of protections that are in Chapter 13, different committee, different conversation. But when something is non-public or private, this doesn't impact that at all. The other piece is that when we adopted the amendment, part of it was, I don't think even without the amendment, we would have an issue. But the amendment, what it did was, as Representative Coulter said, it focused it on those issues, economic development issues, issues of property management and tax acquisition. So if there is any, like in the county attorney's office, if you're worried, if we would be worried, I would be worried about, agreements with survivors. Those, I think, are already covered under Chapter 13, but we narrowed the scope so that it's really just focused on those issues. It's a good question. Thank you for asking it.
Thank you. Next on the list, Representative Acom, then Representative Davis.
Well,
Or
yeah,
is-
just real quick. Thank you. Mr.
Representative
Chair.
Davis, is it to this point?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, all right, go for it.
So could we ask House Research that question, whether it would affect? Because I thought I heard you say you think Chapter 13 isn't covered under this, so, or wouldn't be
Oh, I
affected by
know
this.
Chapter 13 isn't covered under this. I think the question,
Yeah, but you said I think, so that's what,
it might have been a verbal tick, as one of those gendered things.
okay.
Feel
Thank
free.
you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Representative Acom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the authors of the bill, the co-authors who brought the bill forward. As co-chair of the Energy Committee, this topic has been talked about at length in our committee in the last couple of years. And so it certainly was something we worked to try and get passed last year, and unfortunately did not. So I appreciate the efforts by you now. And I think that what we've seen play out, I mean, while I know this goes beyond data centers, the industry that we'd heard about from everyone today is these large-scale data centers that are new to Minnesota. And so I think just this whole newness of this new industry and the people not understanding how it might impact them, there's all sorts of skepticism. So having a non-disclosure agreement, and especially signed by elected officials, like the whole notion seems to have done the industry a disservice, because I think they're going to have a lot of fences to mend in order to continue a pathway here in Minnesota. But I think this is the right approach, and I appreciate that it's a broader scope. Last year when we were looking at it, it was just about data centers. And so I do think that this is an appropriate bill. I support it, and I appreciate you bringing it forward.
Thank you, Co-Chair Acom. Representative Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question, I guess, on this is, some of us have toured the Lakeville schools and, have seen different things that, for school safety that they've put into place down there. And my question, I guess, to this is, would this, as far as like trade secrets or anything like that, would it prevent those things from being kept secret? And I think the answer is probably no, but I just wanted to kind of ask that, so.
Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Gordon, for asking that question. Again, as I said, it does not disturb the very delicate balance of trade secrets, of confidential information, of non-public information that decades of law has been built up. Well, all this does is say that local officials can't sign a contract with a private company. And in some cases, I'll say, to be honest, as I've been having conversations, I think what these NDAs do is put local officials in a position of potentially either having to violate their NDA or violate Chapter 13. And these are good, smart lawyers who probably write in some clause, but I think this is a protection for those local officials who want to do right by both the development and by their constituents. The thing I will say also is there's most cases where local jurisdictions are doing development work, they're doing any number of contracts, they're not signing NDAs. I think that the reason we're talking about data centers partially is because the companies know that if the public understands and participates, it's going to be a barrier for them and a business problem. You will see, like, when a warehouse comes to your town that people want, they're all over the place telling people about it, right? They're telling you about the jobs they're bringing because they're trying to communicate with the public. And so I think that what we're really trying to do here is just not let those companies control the information. We're trying to say that you shouldn't be able to sign an NDA with a private company.
Representative Gordon, any follow-up?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Representative Coulter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Greenman and Representative Roach, for bringing this bill. And, someone said the magic words, so I have to respond. I represent the Mall of America, and I did for 5 years when I was on the Bloomington City Council. And quite honestly, I had to laugh because in my time on City Council, we had a number of projects that included public financing in some way related to the mall. And if we had tried to sign an NDA with the Mall of America, I think the best that I could have hoped for would have been getting run out of town on a rail. I mean, there would have been almost literal, if not literal, pitchforks and torches at our city council meetings if we had tried to pull this on the folks in Bloomington with the Mall of America. And so to think of projects that are comparable in size to the Mall of America falling under these NDAs and local governments, just falling under that, it is just shocking to me. And I cannot imagine how this could be allowed to happen. So I'm glad that we are moving to prevent it from happening.
Thank you, Representative Coulter. Representative Roach.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the testifiers that came out either remotely or in person and testified. This is something that, has a big impact on my community. As one of the testifiers had said, it is causing division within the communities, right? I mean, and it's something that we can be avoidable and should be avoidable. As elected officials, there should be 100% transparency with the public. And so I'm just really excited to be a part of this. I appreciate you allowing me to do that. I think it's a great step, again, of just being transparent and honest with communities. We represent our constituents and not special interests, so I'm excited about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Roach. I don't have any additional members on the Co-Chair Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the author, why isn't this also covering state agencies?
Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Co-Chair Quam. And I know, actually, I think Representative Roach's bill involves state agencies. I would certainly support it. The thing that I think we need to act with urgency. We're hearing that, and it's happening at the local level. I think that if we pass this into law, that we should actually think about how to do it at the state level. It's just not been the same kind of conversation. And so I think what we are hearing loud and clear from communities is we need to do this now. And so I think that I'd love to work with you. I know that Representative Roach's bill, I believe, covers state folks, and I will be supporting that bill too.
Mr. Chair.
Co-Chair Quam.
You've had conversations with Representative Roach. Why wasn't there, you had two amendments. Why did you include an amendment that would include state agencies. Why did you leave that out of the bill since you've had these extensive conversations?
Representative Greenman, follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Quam, because it's a different set of consultation conversations, and I want to make sure that we're talking to and really understand all of the ways that it would affect at the state. We have been doing this at the county and the city level. We've heard from county commissioners, and so I think it just makes sense to do our work. And so we absolutely should continue to work on that. That's a different bill, and that's why it's not in this bill.
Co-Chair Quam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, frankly, it's the same intent in the bill, but looking at this and the discussions and testimony, was this heard in the Commerce Committee or the Judiciary Committee?
Representative Greenman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, because it doesn't touch either Commerce or Judiciary statutes. Yes, last week we heard a bill about HOAs that didn't go to Commerce. We sent it to the General Register because it didn't actually implicate those statutes. The same thing is true about this. This is a simple bill that just affects local government. It bans NDAs at the local government level. It doesn't touch any of the pieces. In addition, I talked to, nobody has raised Commerce, but I did talk to the co-chair of the Judiciary Committee, who, Representative Leaving, who said it didn't need to go there.
Co-Chair Quam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Why didn't you talk with the other co-chair, Scott?
Representative Greenman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, because she didn't reach out to me. And it doesn't, again, there are mandatory referrals for judiciary, Chapter 13, civil penalties. Every bill I've had that have gone there. Lots of bills that I have had could have gone to 17 committees, but this one doesn't impact that. This is a simple bill that just impacts Chapter 471, which is not in the judiciary's jurisdiction. And it's my bill.
Okay, Co-Chair Quam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If it's so, you're so vehemently, it doesn't impact judiciary, so then why did you talk to the judiciary co-chair about having them hear it if you were positive that it didn't go into there, and legal agreements between private parties and parts of government? I thought that was something that generally does go through the Judiciary Committee, at least in the past, over the last decade and a half or so. There have been occasions where that was done. So I see a little incongruity with the deciding to talk to one of the chairs and then the statement of, oh, I didn't have, there's no need to even think about going there. So I guess I'm less than happy that you didn't talk to both chairs and make sure there wasn't some sort of desire, to go into, because it's logical to think that legal agreements between private and government entities wouldn't go through such a committee.
Thank you. Co-Chair Quam, after you spoke, Representative McDonald asked to be recognized. So,
Mr. Chair, could I respond to that, though?
Representative Greenman?
Thank you. I only reached out to Chair Liebling after I think the GOP staff indicated they wanted to try to send it to judiciary. And also, every committee has bills about contracts, about vendors, about all sorts of things, and we don't send those all to judiciary. Because if every private contracting issue, whether it was a labor contract, whether it was a land use contract, went through judiciary, no bills would be heard. And very few bills would get through it. And so I think that when we talk about Chapter 471, this is literally just saying local governments cannot sign a very specific kind of contract. It's not in their jurisdiction, and I feel comfortable as the author of the bill for it to go to the General Register.
Chair McDonald?
Mr. Chair, Representative Greenman, in your A1 amendment that's attached to the bill now, would this include utilities, city utilities, also prevent them from non-disclosure? And then also perhaps co-ops? And if co-ops even had anything, they're privately, but they're kind of publicly owned by the members. But particularly city utilities. Often many of our small cities have their own utility company.
Representative Greenman.
Thank you. If that, which I would assume it would be a political subdivision with the authority to enter into a contract for real property, then it would be included.
Representative Chair McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was my understanding as well, and maybe Mr. Garing could, or Ms. Griffin could validate that, but I believe that's the interpretation, but we got to be careful what we interpret. We want to make sure it's accurate.
Are you asking?
So with that,
Ms.
Mr. Chair, I'm asking Mr. Garing or Ms. Griffin.
This might be Ms. Griffin's area of expertise. Ms. Griffin.
Chair Freiberg and members, yeah, like Representative Greenman stated, if the utility is a political subdivision of the state, so that includes governmental entities that aren't the state or federal government, it has the authority to enter into a contract for the use of real property, then it would qualify.
Chair McDonald.
Very good, that makes sense. And then co-ops, does that have anything to do with, we have some of our co-ops have electrical companies, and are they excluded from this?
Ms. Griffin.
Chair Freiberg and Representative McDonald, we're venturing into territory that I'm not super familiar with co-ops and the statutes that govern them, but the same analysis would apply.
Chair McDonald.
No, thank you, that's enough. I don't want all the co-ops calling me. Anybody in the room?
Seeing no additional members seeking recognition, thank you for bringing this bill forward. Representative Greenman, I think it's a really important issue, and we've heard a lot of compelling testimony, so I will let you close out your bill.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate the conversation, and I don't think I could have said it better than our testifiers. This isn't about, whether you like or don't like data centers. The question is, do you think the public should be involved in that decision? We heard one of the testifiers said, when you learn more from your newspaper than your local government, it erodes trust. Someone else said, when you want your government to negotiate in the best interest in public view, and I would also say with public participation. That's all this does. Vast majority of these decisions or these conversations about economic development, about land use, are not happening with these NDAs. This NDIA situation is these giant corporations who are coming and trying to use tools to keep things from the public. So in the interest of public transparency, I think that this is an easy vote, and I really appreciate Representative Roach's partnership on this.
Thank you, Representative Greenman. So with that, I will Representative Greenman renews her motion that House File 4077 as amended be referred to the General Register. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the bill is on its way. Congratulations, Representative Greenman.
Thank you.
Yep. Representative Virnig. Let me see, this bill is, okay, thank you. Would you like to move that House File 3798 be before the committee?
Yes.
The intention is to lay the bill over.
Yeah, with intention to lay the bill over, correct.
Yep. Yes. So thank you. To your bill, Representative Virnig.
If you would indulge me, I do have an oral amendment. I'd like to amend line 5.21 so that the date reflects 2026 instead of 2025.
Okay, I'll give members a second just to get their
absolutely.
bills in order, including myself. Okay, so our members, this does seem to be a technical amendment. It just updates a year. Co-Chair Quam, is that amenable to you? The bill is being laid over, but also, okay, I'm seeing agreement. Representative Virnig moves an oral amendment to change it. Would you like to restate it one more time?
Yes, that line 5.21, the date says 2026 instead of 2025.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion to the oral amendment? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the amendment is adopted. To your bill as amended, Representative Virnig.
Yes, thank you. House File 3798 is a bill brought forth by my school board members that I represent and the Minnesota School Board Association. The bill would amend ballot language around capital project and operating levy referendums. Specifically, it would eliminate the text, "By voting yes on this ballot question, you are voting for a property tax increase." This ballot language is a bit one-sided, and it doesn't inform voters that if you vote no, X, Y, and Z may happen, such as
close schools, cut bus routes, increase class sizes. This bill removes the language so that people can rely on the information that they receive in advance of voting regarding the impact of the referendum. Districts are still required to notify taxpayers of the referendum by mail before the election and are still required to state the maximum amount of the increased revenue per adjusted pupil unit and designate the number of years the referendum applies. Districts still provide tax impact notices, detailed informational mailings, tax calculators, and property-specific estimates. This change would bring the ballot into a neutral state. I do have an online testifier and technical support remote, if necessary.
Okay, thank you. So the testifier who signed up is online. It is Kim McLaughlin. Kim McLaughlin, please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair and members of the House Election, Finance, and Government Operations Committee, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Kim McLaughlin, and I'm the treasurer of the Hibbing School Board. And I am here today in support of House File 3798 and to uplift the voices of public schools across the state of Minnesota. Voters deserve to understand how a voter-approved referendum impacts their pocketbooks. I believe in transparency, and just as strongly, I believe in accuracy. And having said that, I believe that transparency without accuracy can be misleading to voters. So the current ballot requirement stating, by voting yes on this ballot question, you are voting for a property tax increase, sounds pretty straightforward. But in practice, it really oversimplifies something that is far more complex. In Hibbing, heading into the 25-26 school year, our district faced a $2.6 million shortfall, resulting in the elimination of 34 positions. Our annual operating budget is about $45 million, and at that time, we had a levy that was falling off. So in an attempt to stabilize our budget, we brought two levy questions to the voters on one ballot. One was an operating levy and one was a capital levy. And each of those impacts voters differently depending upon the property classification. So in preparation for the referendum, our district provided individualized tax calculators, required notices to ensure voters had accurate, personalized information. But when voters entered the booth, all of that nuance disappeared, and it was really replaced by a very lengthy, complicated question and one generalized sentence. By voting yes on this ballot question, you're voting for a property tax increase. After the election, I had property owners who contacted me, and they had understood their personalized estimates, but at that very moment, when they went in to vote, uncertainty came across them, and they really were confused in casting their ballot. So our questions both failed, and now our district faces another $2 million in cuts. So my testimony here today is not about persuading voters how to vote. It's making sure voters are not presented with information that is incomplete or overly broad at that very moment when they're casting their vote and making a civic decision that affects young people's futures. A one-size-fits-all sentence does not reflect how levy impacts actually work in Minnesota. And in my opinion, House File 3798 does not remove transparency. Districts will still be required to provide the required notices, individualized calculators, and truth in taxation statements. What the bill removes is a sentence that can unintentionally mischaracterize the real tax impacts for everyday people. And as a school board member, it's my responsibility to steward public trust, to ensure voters have information that's complete, clear, and accurate. So long-term, I believe the bigger solution is to fix our K-Fund funding system so districts like ours don't have to rely on repeated local referendums just to maintain services. But until that work is done, I believe we owe Minnesotans ballots that reflect accurate information. Therefore, I believe House File 3798 moves us in that direction. So today, I thank you for your time and your commitment to Minnesotans and Minnesota students and communities across the state. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I understand there's also a remote testifier who's available for questions. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak to this bill? Okay. Seeing none, member discussion. Representative Coulter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Virnig, for bringing this bill forward. I've always been a little bit frustrated with this language, not because I don't think the public can be trusted to make a judgment on what their tax dollars should or should not be used for, but a levy increase, let alone maintaining an existing levy, is not even a guarantee of a property tax increase. If your property value goes down enough, even if you vote for the levy, it's not a guarantee that your property taxes are gonna go up. And so to me, it is just, it's not only misleading, it can be really inaccurate information. So I think this really just gets at making sure that what we're saying on the ballot is accurate. Thank you.
Thank you. Co-Chair Quam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a clarification, if property values are going down, the rate at which it'll be per dollar property value would go up because school referendums and stuff are on a tax base. And unless your house goes down because you devalued it by doing something that made it not attractive for purchase. But basically, if property taxes move at a general rate up, so you could have everybody's property values went up 10%, wouldn't increase the school levy funds being taken from you because they're levying for X amount of dollars, and that's spread across that property base. So I think you're mistaken your general assumption, because there's difference between mill rates set by other governmental entities. So if property values go up, you can keep the mill rate the exact same amount and get more money. But in schools, it's different on these referendums.
Thank you. Any additional member discussion? Representative McDonald, way to make an appearance.
Well, it is almost St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chair, Representative Virnig, I'm not sure how to vote on this personally. I think it's possibly a good idea, and it's possibly a good idea to keep it there, possibly a good idea to take it out. As Thomas Jefferson said, educate and inform, an educated and informative whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for preservation of our liberty. So we are required to be an educated mass of people to know what's happening. So if people are not aware that their property tax will increase by voting for a levy, then they will get what they deserve. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe when they get their property tax the following year and they realize, my goodness, it went up. They should have paid attention to local politics, especially school elections and referendums. So in a way, like like Benjamin Franklin said when they finished the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights, or actually the Bill of Rights, a reporter asked Benjamin Franklin, well, what did we give you? And Benjamin Franklin said, we gave them a republic if they will keep it. So it is up to us voters to be educated on the issues, isn't it? So I'm not sure how to vote on this, because I think the people will get what they deserve. If they don't know it's a tax increase by voting for a referendum, a levy increase, then they should get what they deserve. That's my thoughts on this.
Yeah. Chair McDonald, we are laying the bill over, so you have more time to think about how you will vote on this.
And furthermore, Mr. Chair, 7 years ago, okay, that's enough. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any additional member discussion? Representative Virnig, to that point?
Yeah, I would just like to note that the board actually has to mail taxpayers a notice at least 15 days, but not more than 45 days beforehand. So every taxpayer should get a notice from their district via the mail. I would hope that they would read it and understand its implications. And then just to Chair Quam's point, if you have a growing population and more homes are in there, then that can bring down the cost. So other than that, no.
Any additional member discussion? All right, seeing none, any closing remarks, Representative Virnig?
No, I would just like to renew my motion that House File 3798 as amended is laid over for possible inclusion. I think this would help provide clarity on referendum questions by focusing on the ballot language, and thank you for your time.
Yep, thank you for your presenting your bill. With that, the bill as amended is laid over. So finally, we will come to House File 3886, Representative Sencer-Mura, if you'd like to come forward. I will move that House File 3886 be re-referred to the General Register. Welcome to the committee, Representative Sencer-Mura. Please present your bill.
Thank you, Chair Freiberg, and Chair Quam, and members of the committee. I'm going to keep my remarks brief because I have Hennepin County Board Chair Irene Fernando here, and she has to leave. So I want to make sure to give time for her testimony. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present House File 3886. House File 3886 prohibits a local government from entering into an agreement with the federal government to provide facilities to receive a person into custody when the basis for detention is a civil violation or perceived civil violation of federal immigration law. This bill comes on the heels of our communities experiencing the trauma of Operation Metro Surge. Part of the chaos, confusion, and cruelty that ICE deployed during Metro Surge was the use of county jails. I am the granddaughter of Americans of Japanese descent who were unlawfully detained by our federal government during World War II. Based on this experience, it is in my blood to say not again and not on my watch will Americans be detained. The federal government has apologized for the internment and detention of 120,000 Japanese Americans during World War II. The government has admitted that it was wrong to detain people based on their status as immigrants or descendants of immigrants. With a deep understanding of the harms that a community faces from being unlawfully detained, I present this bill before you today. My grandmother was a teenager when she was in an internment camp where people would often get sick from unsanitary conditions. In that camp, mental health needs like depression were also exacerbated. Today, teenagers who are detained by ICE write, "More than 60 days I've been here. I'm going to the doctor, and the only thing that they tell you is to drink more water, and the worst thing is that it seems that the water is what makes people sick here." Another teenager writes, "Since I got to this center, all you will feel is sadness and mostly depression. History does not repeat itself, but sometimes it does rhyme." The numbers of how many people were detained by Metro Surge here in Minnesota are unclear. There is no evidence that the 3,000 to 4,000 people that were detained during the surge had any criminal history or prior convictions. On one day alone in January, attorneys filed 20 civil suits seeking a client's constitutional rights to due process. The petitions for release give details about the people and where they were picked up by ICE. Of those 20, 6 were arrested while out in the community doing things like picking up a prescription or getting groceries. 5 were arrested at home, including 1 pregnant individual. 4 were detained when they showed up to a planned immigration check-in. Local jails are a public good that the state subsidizes, and during the surge, they were used as a tool by ICE to be able to unlawfully detain thousands of Minnesotans. This is not about crime. These jails were used by ICE to keep and ship residents out of the metro area to greater Minnesota, making it more difficult for their attorneys and families to contact them. This is wrong. This bill would stop the practice of ICE using jails to unlawfully detain people and stop the practice of local governments renting out their jails to earn additional revenue. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will now like to turn it over to my testifier.
Thank you for your testimony. I have 5 testifiers signed up, so welcome to the committee, Commissioner Fernando, or Chair Fernando, excuse me. Please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Irene Fernando. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Hennepin County District 2 Commissioner and Board Chair, and I'm a very proud child of immigrants. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Chair Quam and members for the time to address your committee today, and to Representative Sencer-Mura for authoring this legislation. As a county commissioner, there's a lot that counties are responsible for, from administering our state social safety net and human services program to elections administration, as of course the committee is well aware. Counties are not positioned to carry out and in fact have liability related to civil immigration enforcement. Last December, Suffolk County in New York was ordered to pay $112 million following a class action lawsuit brought by people detained at the request of ICE from 2016 to 2018. In Hennepin County, we saw the damage that Operation Metro Surge caused and continues to cause in communities across Hennepin and across our state. Hennepin established Operation Reconnect, a whole county approach to ensure residents were and are able to still access the services that they need. We also passed board action resolutions to clarify county policies related to immigration, use of county facilities, and to condemn the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Feedback from residents is clear. It is essential for counties to remain focused where we have statutory authorities or mandates, such as SNAP or foster care, with growing resident requests to also focus on areas where leadership from counties has proved essential, regardless if there's a mandate, such as housing, homelessness, libraries, health access, transit, mobility, and climate. Last, I will note that the bill's language specifies civil versus criminal immigration enforcement, and therefore this bill does not impede upon any jurisdiction with legal authorities related to public safety, law enforcement, or prosecution. Specifically, at a time where our broader state system has too few beds for all sorts of complex medical and justice needs, it is important to focus local property tax dollars for criminal obligation or local public safety needs. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for your testimony, Chair Fernando. So I have 4 more testifiers next that have signed up. Next is Brianna Kemp. If you could come forward. After Brianna Kemp will be John Bueller. Welcome to the committee. Please, once you've seated yourself, identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Brianna Kemp, and I'm the Executive Director of State Dual Action Fund, an organization of low-wage workers advocating for policies that improve the lives of workers and our families. I'm here to speak in support of House File 3886. Many of our members work in construction and in hospitality, 2 industries that were especially targeted and harmed by Operation Metro Surge. These are also industries where we frequently hear about issues like wage theft, unsafe working conditions, sexual assault, and even labor trafficking. 1 in 4 construction workers experience wage theft, most often low-wage immigrant workers and workers of color. Now, imagine experiencing wage theft and then being threatened by your boss that they'll call the police or report you to ICE when you try to recover those wages. When engagement with local law enforcement or a local jail can lead to deportation proceedings, immigrant workers are more vulnerable to abuse and exploitation. Workplace violations go unreported, and workers are pushed farther into the shadows because speaking up and seeking help can mean risking everything. These agreements do not increase public safety. This doesn't just impact immigrant workers. The chilling effect from these agreements leads to a lowering of workplace standards and wages for everyone. Even today, many construction workers are still unable to safely return to work. And the impacts of that are rippling across the construction industry as we see many housing projects coming to a halt. Businesses along the immigrant corridors of the Twin Cities have lost at least half their sales through Operation Metro Surge, and some have closed permanently. Restaurants in particular, which rely heavily on immigrant labor, have had to reduce hours, lay off workers, and run on fewer staff. In order to revive industries that have been decimated by federal immigration actions, workers need to feel safe going back to work. I urge you to support this bill today and to continue to take up bills that ban any and all types of cooperation agreements between local governments and federal immigration agencies. This is essential to rebuild trust with communities who have been targeted and traumatized by Operation Metro Surge, and to protect immigrant workers as they begin to recover and work to regain safety and dignity in their daily lives. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. The next testifier is John Bueller, and after John Bueller will be a remote testifier, Dr. Linus Chan. Welcome back to the committee, Mr. Bueller. Please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Freiberg, Chair Quam, members of the committee. My name is John Bueller. I'm the Policy Counsel with the ACLU of Minnesota. We're here to testify in support of HF 3886. We want to be clear up front about what this bill does not do. The bill does not affect individuals who are detained on suspicion of criminal activity. who have been charged with crimes and who are awaiting trial, or who have been convicted of crimes and are serving their sentence. Local and state facilities will continue to hold those individuals regardless of immigration status. When the Minnesota Department of Corrections says that they and the counties have 300 people with immigration detainers in state and county custody, those individuals are not affected by this bill. The people that will be affected by this bill are those that we have seen detained during the last few months: citizens, lawful permanent residents, asylees, refugees, undocumented immigrants, and more. These individuals have been and will continue to be swept up in warrantless stops without probable cause and transported to local facilities for detention. These arrests, when they are made without warrants and when they are made without probable cause, constitute constitutional violations. Continued detention is a constitutional violation. Transportation to out-of-state facilities is a constitutional violation. Prohibition or undue delays or interference with attorney contact is a constitutional violation. And all of these are examples of things that have occurred numerous times over the past several months in Minnesota. While the federal government and federal agents may enjoy immunity under Section 1983 claims, local and state governments enjoy no such immunity. Lawsuits related to ICE detention are growing commensurate with the growth in detention itself. In November 2025, Bristol County, Massachusetts paid $800,000 related to immigration detention conditions. In 2024, New York City was ordered to pay $92.5 million for improperly detaining immigrants. As Commissioner Fernando testified, in November 2025, Suffolk County, New York was ordered to pay $112 million solely based on detainers issued by ICE without showing probable cause. And in 2022, here in Minnesota in Nobles County, simply for the fact of 4 wrongfully detained people, Nobles County paid $200,000 in a settlement. The process is not slowing down, but rather it is accelerating. According to a court survey by Reuters, 4,400 times the federal government has illegally detained people since last October. Minnesota law enforcement should not be complicit in this mass deprivation of our constitutional rights, and Minnesota taxpayers should not foot the bill for this morally outrageous behavior. We urge the committee to support HF 3886, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bueller, and if you could please stick around, I think you might have a question from a committee member, but I would like to get through the testimony first. So next is Dr. Linus Chan, who is online. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, committee members and Chair Fry. My name is Linus Chan, and I am a clinical professor of law. I teach at the University of Minnesota Law School. I run a clinic representing people who are detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. In fact, my entire legal career has been around representing those who are detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. I'm testifying in support of this bill, and I'm happy to answer questions that members may have afterwards. There are a few things that I think is important to understand about how county jails are used in the immigration enforcement system, both here in Minnesota and elsewhere. First, many of the people that are detained in these county jails are not residents of the counties for which they are detained in. In fact, increasingly, many members of the people who are detained in these county jails are not even residents of the state of Minnesota. They are shipped from all over the country and sometimes find themselves detained here. And many of the residents of Minnesota, when they find themselves in immigration detention, are also shipped all over the country, where quite a few members of our communities are now in Texas and Louisiana. Second, many, in fact, the most recent numbers that we have is that only 30% of the people that are detained in immigration detention are in fact have any sort of criminal record. In fact, only 10 to 14% have a violent criminal history. Increasingly, the number of people being detained in immigration detention have absolutely no criminal record and have no instance of having shown any propensity for harm to the community or even flight risk. Finally, the population of the people that are being put in detention cannot fairly even be described as quote unquote illegal immigrants. Many of the people that are being put in immigration detention are students who arrived here on student visas, who have done nothing more than post something on social media, refugees who've been vetted more than any other group of people that could be vetted, and who are not even subject to removal have found themselves being detained. And we have certainly seen people who were allowed to enter the United States by a prior administration, but because this administration disapproves of those policy choices, they've decided to then go ahead and detain them. And it includes people who are going through the system, who appear in court, made all their appointments, and done everything that they can and that they've been asked to do within the legal system. I think it's important to understand that one of the challenges of allowing localities to contract with Immigration and Customs Enforcement is that it will cause conflict between the counties. You already have a situation in which county jails are now housing people from other residents of other counties, and in fact, from other states.
If you could
You
please
also have-
conclude your testimony in 1 or 2 sentences, that would be great.
Absolutely. And I also want to point out that at least in some of the county jails that currently hold ICE detainees, more than half of their capacity is taken by ICE, which means that they are themselves not able to hold people that the county themselves should for people who are awaiting trial or awaiting for criminal enforcement. So with that, I'll conclude my testimony, but I'm happy to answer any questions that any members might have.
Yep. Thank you for your testimony, Dr. Chan. Sorry if forgot to give notify the next testifier, but it is Jose Alviar. If you could come up to the table, please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony. And then that is the list of people who have signed up in advance.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee, and also thank you, Representative, for bringing this very important legislation here. My name is Jose Villar, and I am a lead organizer at Unidos Minnesota, grassroots power organization that has a membership of nearly 50,000 people. I'm here today to urge your strong support for House File 3886. This bill is a necessary step to ensure that local government resources and community priorities remain focused on serving Minnesotans, not on participating in civil immigration enforcement. We are asking to support this bill for 2 core reasons. One is fiscal responsibility, and the other one is community safety. First, this bill protects local government finances. When local governments enter into contracts to house federal immigration detainees, they divert critical local resources, including staff time, jail capacity, and taxpayer dollars away from their core responsibilities, which are public safety for residents, infrastructure, and community services. By prohibiting these contracts, House File 3886 ensures that local taxpayer dollars are used for local priorities instead of subsidizing federal immigration enforcement. Secondly, the bill safeguards our communities. When local facilities participate in immigration detention, it creates mistrust with the community that they are meant to serve. We have already seen the consequences during Operation Metro Surge when federal enforcement operations eroded the trust between immigrant communities and local institutions. Even Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara has stated that the federal operations made the city less safe by eroding trust in the justice system. That chilling effect discourages residents, regardless of status, from reporting crimes, cooperating with police, or accessing essential services. Supporting this bill sends a clear message that our local governments prioritize building trust and ensuring that safety and well-being for all its residents over facilitating the federal civil detention system. House File 3886 ensures that Minnesota's local governments remain focused on serving their residents, not on acting as extensions of the federal immigration detention system. I respectfully urge for your support on this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any members of the public who wish to testify? Are you leaving or going to the? Okay, all right, just wanted to be sure. Okay. Yes. Okay, so there is nobody in the public who wishes to testify. Co-Chair Quam, I understand you had a question for one of the testifiers. Was it for Mr. Bueller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are a few things from the testifiers. One, the complaining about the additional financial burden. Actually, I've spoken with multiple county sheriffs who they've got cooperative agreements for people from multiple counties can be held there because they've got the same overhead, whether they're basically sitting empty or if they have other people there. So actually, they get increased revenue by that. The professor was talking about initially these people aren't even residents of that county, and then as a reason against allowing the utilization, but later on, talked about the cooperative, see, most counties where I'm at have cooperative agreements so that if they have something and they hit capacity, they can go to and utilize a surrounding jail. So it's not unusual to have people that aren't residents of your county. But he was a little bit contradictory between parts of his discussion. But now back to, I think it was, is it Brian? Or is it?
Mr. Bueller?
Mr. Bueller.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure he's never heard that, Chair McDonald. So, Co-Chair Kwong.
I believe you're the one that testified and spoke about people being, I guess, threatened by their bosses for not working. They complained. Oh, I guess it was a different one.
Okay, welcome back to the committee. So thank you for coming back.
Okay. I believe what I heard was some testimony saying that the bosses would threaten people that complained that they were going to call immigration services. My understanding is that if you're not legally capable of working, if you aren't here legally, and therefore the employer can be charged by bringing that point up to someone else. So I'm getting confused, or a employer threatening to go and tell people that he's not obeying the law.
Brianna Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Representative. The point of that is that we hear from many of our members that reporting people to the police or to immigration is used as a threat. It's used as a way to keep workers quiet, to not raise questions about their wages or complain about unsafe working conditions. And what we see, especially during and as a result of Operation Metro Surge, is that workers with documentation and without are equally terrified right now, because the way that the violence was perpetrated over the last few months was broad across our community, and documentation many times did not matter. And so we have seen a rise in employers using the threat of calling immigration as a way to keep people quiet about problems in the workplace.
Co-Chair Kwong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's confusing that a person would then be admitting, I'm calling the feds, and I'm going to say, I'm employing somebody that can't legally work here. You need to come and pick them up. Well, that's evidence that they are admitting to not following the law and therefore could come up for charges. So, I mean, that seems a little bit confusing. It seems like a bit of an idle threat, because they could ride in the same vehicle off to jail because they're violating the law. Because for years, I have tried to get a change allowing Minnesota to have more people come and work for the ag program, so there would be a higher number of people allowed and get worker permits and have documentation and legally come here and help us out. So there's, and that's been hard to try and get through the legislature. I don't know why. But here, because it's illegal to do that, so you're saying the threat is, I'm going to admit to the law enforcement that I'm breaking the law so that you won't complain. That seems a little bit of a confusing thing, but I'll let the rest of the people speak.
Okay, thank you, Co-Chair Kwong. Representative McDonald.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm not sure if this question should be for the, or who could answer it, House Fiscal Analysts or Representative Sencer-Mura. If your bill should become law and someone is detained, where then would that person be sent or transported?
Representative Sencer-Mura.
Thank you. I might ask Mr. Bueller to come back up and help me out with that one. Thank you.
Sure. Welcome back, Mr. Bueller. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Freiberg. Representative McDonald, federal facilities.
Representative McDonald.
Mr. Chair, Representative Bueller, federal facilities, and how many are in the state of Minnesota?
Chair Bueller, Representative,
I can answer too.
Mr. Bueller.
Getting promoted every sentence, Chair. Chair Freiberg, Representative McDonald, there's the Federal Whipple building. There's another federal facility, we believe, opening in western Minnesota, and there are federal facilities in western Wisconsin.
Yeah, Chair McDonald, I had a constituent who was immediately removed to a federal facility in Texas also, so that seems to not be a limitation on the government. But proceed, Chair McDonald.
Yes, thank you. So in your expert opinion, Mr. Bueller or Representative Sencer-Mura, if someone is detained and your bill becomes law, we're not allowed to use our local sheriff's associations, local sheriff's jails throughout our state, is it better for that person who be removed from their family and to a different state, perhaps, or a different part of the state? Or would it be best if that person was kept local in the communities in which the person was apprehended?
Representative Sencer-Mura.
Thank you, Chair McDonald. You know, I think that that's a really good question and one that I think we've been asking about because we have heard horrific stories of both the conditions in some of the detention centers here in Minnesota, but also horrific conditions in the detention centers in places like Texas. And I think the answer to that is we do not want people held in Minnesota or anywhere in the United States unlawfully. So if people are being held unlawfully because of their real or perceived immigration status, we certainly don't want any part of that here in Minnesota. As Mr. Bueller and Chair Irene Fernando spoke to, many local governments are now having to pay out for actions taken by ICE that use their jails. I don't believe that given our local government finances and the fact that our counties and our cities are constantly telling us they need more financial support, that we want to put them on the hook for that. So I see this as both a way to protect the finances of our local units of government and also not incentivize the detention of Minnesota residents, which I think is certainly what we have seen. There is, with the federal government, a bit of a if you build it, they will come mentality. We know that during Metro Surge, the federal administration had a mandate to pick up a number of people, and within that, they picked up lawful citizens, they picked up children, they picked up pregnant women, they picked up my neighbors, they probably picked up your neighbors. So we don't want to incentivize that here in Minnesota.
Chair McDonald.
Mr. Chair, thank you. One of the big problems I think that we created here in Minnesota, we being the people, and in particular our leadership, is that we didn't work with local law enforcement. And I hope that you all agree that it's probably best that when it deals with the federal government and our local government, especially in law enforcement, our sworn law enforcement officers, it is probably best that we work together. In states in which ICE operations were handled in a 30-day operation, that the local government, including Democrat-led local government, met and worked with local law enforcement, there wasn't the chaos and sadness that we occurred here in Minnesota. I can state several states, Florida, Louisiana, even I'll stop right there, but other states as well, that their local law enforcement and their governors and their mayors worked with ICE. Many years ago, CNN, as a matter of fact, followed along ICE during President Obama's administration when they went and got the illegal immigrants. And they were hailed as doing such a fantastic job. So the mistake that we made, Representative Sencer-Mura, is the fact that we, local elected officials, not me personally, but those who are in charge, were not willing to work with our local law enforcement, and chaos ensued. And unfortunately, some innocent people got caught in the crossfire. And for those folks, they were sent out of state. That is not humane, certainly. Your bill, I think, would be inhumane in the fact that if someone is detained for their illegal status, they could be sent out completely out of state, away from their families and businesses and loved ones. That is not a very humane way to conduct the law enforcement, in my opinion. I think it's best if we work with our local law enforcement and the federal government and work together to solve these issues. This doesn't do that, in my humble opinion, and I think it's evident if we looked at the last 6 months, it didn't work. If we follow what states did in past in working with the federal government, it went almost flawlessly. No one was killed. Few riots. Few assaults. It was unfortunately, what we have here was self-inflicted. And your bill, I believe, in my limited years here, I think would just exacerbate that chaos if this should happen again in the future.
Vice Chair Lee.
Thank you, Chair. So I am at a loss for words at what the committee just heard. I think the facts are that during Operation Metro Surge, there was an unprecedented number of federal troops deployed to our state of Minnesota. And, that's unprecedented, in U.S. history ever. And so I'm just so upset. This is not self-inflicted. And this is very unique. I think the comparisons to anything in the past, whatever, is quite frankly really insulting and offensive to especially the people who lost their lives. So I'm just going to say that at the beginning. But what I did want to say, I guess, which Representative Sencer-Mura alluded to earlier, and also Dr. Chan, because of this unprecedented buildup of federal forces, which, a lot of us, understand is retribution against our state because Minnesota did not vote for President Donald Trump 2 times, and, a variety of other reasons, because he also seemed to not like our governor. Because of this unprecedented surge, there were people who were unlawfully taken, right? So federal agents acted unlawfully, and this bill is trying to make sure that our county and local governments are not implicated in these illegal actions, right? We heard earlier that Suffolk County was sued for hundreds of millions of dollars. And so what's happening here is, right, like we can't take the federal government at their word that what they're doing is actually legal, because it's not. It has not been. And it's been found in the courts in multiple orders, right? And so when we look at what counties across the state are facing with the increase in costs to maintain current operations, and then also with HR 1 and the Senate reconciliation bill, which is literally stealing from county governments and also from our state budget in administrating a variety of federal funds. Adding this extra burden, this potential fiscal and legal liability is not sound policy. And so, I do want to emphasize that. And Mr. Baylor is not lying when he says, and even Rep. Sencer-Mura is not lying when they say a lot of people, citizens, asylum seekers, refugee folks were taken and detained unlawfully. And I know that because many of my constituents were taken. These were people who were refugees, asylum seekers who came here. And, there is not a need to open up more local jails because there wasn't a need to detain these people at all. You heard earlier, there are at least 2 federal facilities in Minnesota. And, if the federal government were following the law and, using judicial warrants and doing what they were supposed to do, there would not be a need to contract with local governments and, subject them to this liability. So thank you, Representative Sencer-Mura, for bringing this bill before us.
Members, just so you have a roadmap, I have 4 members on the list. We do have to vote on this in 10 minutes, so brevity would be appreciated. Vice Chair Altendorf.
Thank you, Chair Freiberg. For the sake of time here, for Representative Sencer-Mura, I was going to ask, but I guess I'll just answer it. In the past presidencies, federal immigration has been enforced. And the Clinton administration, there was 12 million people that were deported. Bush had 10 million. Obama had 5 million. I mean, that's factual. And during the Trump administration now, I last saw, I'm not sure this is 100% accurate, but I last saw it was about 3 million and 2.2 million of the people self-deported. And so I guess my only comment here is this is quite unprecedented, what happened here in Minnesota and not cooperating. You know, I talked to a business owner who employs illegal immigrants, and they also verified with me that during every presidency that they have gone through deportations, that the only thing that had changed this time was our state's reaction and defying federal law. And just leaving this with a quote from CNN, you know, this is from CNN, but it said, during the Obama years, the Hennepin County Jail actually had a policy where they let an ICE agent keep an office there. And so for me, I'm a no on this. I am going to ask for a roll call vote. And I do think that this was very much self-inflicted by local government and federal government working hand in hand would have not escalated the situation that we saw, unfortunately, here in Minnesota.
Representative Roach.
Thank you, Chair. I'll kind of, you know, piggyback on some of what my colleagues on this side of the aisle have stated. Had Minnesota had worked with federal agencies when ICE came here, we would not have seen, you know, what we saw. What we know is that the executive branch did not allow, you know, any help at all. They handcuffed the ICE agents and other federal agencies from really being able to do their job. Had there been help, we wouldn't have had Border Patrol here. They had to come here to protect ICE agents because local officials weren't allowed to do that per the Walz administration. It was unprecedented. Like Representative McDonald said, other states, blue states, you know, Michigan, they didn't have these issues because they worked hand in hand with the federal agencies. So again, it was the Walz administration played a role in this because they wanted to be able to turn the page on fraud. They wanted to be able to shift the narrative away from fraud, $9 billion stolen from taxpayers that we know of, and shift the narrative to ICE and our federal agencies, you know, coming in here and snatching up our neighbors. And it's unfortunate that that's the narrative that some of our colleagues are talking about, instead of, you know, getting to the root of fraud, stop wasting Minnesota taxpayer dollars, helping the people that actually need to be helped. And so, yeah, I'm against this. I don't think, as some of the things that McDonald brought up, I don't necessarily think this solves anything. I think it'll cause just more pain for those families that of individuals that are detained to be detained and held further from their families. So I just, you know, hopefully we can get back to, you know, doing some stuff for elections here, because I know we got a lot of work to do on that end too. So I'm a no.
Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will also be brief, but I think it is, we take an oath to the Constitution and the state law, not to federal agents. And when federal agents violate the First, the Second, the Fourth, the Fifth, the 10th Amendment, the idea that what we should do is cooperate with that lawlessness and unconstitutionality is not only absurd, it is also a violation of our oath. And it is a violation when local law enforcement, we are trying to protect local law enforcement and our local jails from being pulled into that. The idea, again, that what you are saying, which is comply with lawlessness or violence under the barrel of a gun and everything will be okay. Donald Trump said this is promised a day of reckoning and retribution. Those aren't my words. Those are his words. And so when you talk about retribution of the federal government, that is what we're talking about here. And the last thing I will say, because this bill is so important, is that someone is going to be on the hook for this egregious and lawless violence. And it's not going to be federal agents because we haven't changed that law yet. It's going to be local folks. And it's going to be your taxpayer dollars. It's going to be my taxpayer dollars, but it'll probably be more yours because of the jails we're talking about. And so when we're talking about this is just choosing our neighbors. It's also choosing our taxpayers over the lawlessness that we have seen. That feels like an easy vote. It's the right vote morally, but it's also the right vote for our neighbors and our taxpayers.
Co-Chair Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did recall what Bueller's statements, but I don't need him to come up. He was talking about civil versus criminal law and not, there shouldn't be any detention of civil, but it was okay for criminal. But there are multiple instances of where people with multiple criminal charges and convictions have been released, but not to ICE. That they should have been, actually were detained, but they wouldn't allow the transfer, and that's part of the big problem. Frankly, there were a lot of bad activities and things that happened, but the inciting of a mob, the ransacking and destruction inside of a hotel, and on video you see law enforcement standing by. We need to have a stronger impact of law enforcement local when things step beyond First Amendment rights and they're doing damage to property, throwing bricks, windows are broken by frozen bottles and et cetera. I think there's both sides need to look at the ineptitude, and it's more evident just because so many states didn't have this happen. And I think it's the way we had forgotten to cooperate between state and federal activities. But I believe you got a roll call coming.
Thank you, Co-Chair Quam. Thank you. This is a really important bill, Representative Sencer-Mura. I really appreciate you bringing it forward. You know, it's a tough issue for a lot of people. Our community went through a lot of trauma. So I apologize to people who have to relive some of it, but I will give you the closing word, Representative Sencer-Mura.
Thank you, Chair Freiberg and Chair Quam and committee members for the robust conversation. You know, I think as was mentioned here, Minnesota did not comply. Minnesotans did not comply when people came to take our neighbors because that is what we saw with our own eyes. And our neighbors stepped up. And I hope to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that if that ever happens to you, I hope your neighbors also stand up for you. And then what will happen after that is that if you come back to the Capitol, your neighbors will say, we stepped up, community stepped up, we brought each other's groceries, we kept each other safe. Please do something, put something into policy to match what we did. And so that, I think, is what many of us are now here trying to do, to say our community stood for each other, we stood for our neighbors, now our government needs to stand. And one of the small things that we can do is saying that we will not detain unlawfully Minnesotans. And so that's what this bill would do. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sencer-Mura. A roll call has been requested, so I will renew my motion that House File 3886 be referred to the General Register. The clerk will take the roll.
Chair Freiberg?
Yes.
Freiberg, aye. Co-Chair Quam?
No.
Quam, no. Vice Chair Lee?
Yes.
Lee, aye. Vice Chair Altendorf?
No.
Altendorf, no. Representative Acom?
Yes.
Acom, aye. Representative Coulter?
Aye.
Coulter, aye. Representative Davis?
No.
Davis, no. Representative Gordon?
No.
Gordon, no. Representative Greenman?
Aye.
Greenman, aye. Representative McDonald? McDonald, no. Representative Roach? Roach, no. Representative Virnig?
Aye.
Virnig, aye. Mr. Chair, there are 6 ayes, 6 nays.
There being 6 ayes and 6 nays, the motion does not prevail. I will lay the bill over. Thank you, members. We are at time. This committee is adjourned.